5-minute mystery. Midnight. A penthouse on one of Manhattan's skyscrapers, owned by wealthy Roger Hammond. In the dim light of his library, Hammond studies a group of papers on his desk. Then comes a knock on the door.
Come in. Who is it? I can't see you in this blasted darkness, so come in. What do you want? You've got a gun. In heaven's name, don't point that thing at me. Stop it, do you hear? Stop it!
Come in, Mrs. Hammond.
Thank you, Inspector Mills. I flew back from Uruguay as soon as I got your telegram.
Will you sit down?
Roger's death is the most shocking thing that's ever happened to me. Who could have done this awful murder?
I wish I knew, Mrs. Hammond. Of course, we'll do everything we can. Now, there are a few questions I'd like to ask. Merely routine, of course.
Anything I can tell you, Inspector.
This friend of your husband, Stanley Macon, was there any friction between them?
Oh, no, never. They were the best of friends.
Macon was alone at his hunting lodge in Maine when the murder occurred.
And I was so far away. If only I'd been here.
Exactly why did you go to Uruguay, Mrs. Hammond?
Business for Roger. And because I'd never been to South America, he thought it'd be a kind of vacation for me.
Mm-hmm.
Been there only 2 days when I received your wire telling me what happened.
Yes. Do you mind telling me what your plans are? Will you take over Mr. Hammond's enterprises?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose so. I haven't been able to think of anything these last few days. So hard to believe he's gone. Then I suppose I was warned of it in a way.
What do you mean?
Well, it's one of those things that's hard to explain. A terrible presentiment I had. One evening in Uruguay, the night of his murder.
Tell me about it.
It's really nothing, Inspector.
In murder, everything is important, Mrs. Hammond.
I'd gone for an automobile ride, all alone. The moon was shining very brightly, and I was speeding, I'm afraid. But I'm a careful driver. I always keep far to the right. And that night, I made a point of it because I was speeding. Well, suddenly, in the center of the right lane, I saw the figure of a man. I slammed on the brakes, and I was terrified to see in the headlights that the man was Roger. I swerved and ran the car off the road and stopped.
You must have been terribly frightened.
Oh, I was. But I climbed out and ran back to the highway, and on the whole stretch of road, there wasn't anybody at all. And I could see clearly in the moonlight. I know you won't believe me.
You're right, I don't. Because you're lying, Mrs. Hammond.
Lying? Why, what do you mean?
I mean you were never in Uruguay at all. And I'm going to hold you for questioning and perhaps for murder.
What was the clue that made Inspector Mills know Tony Hammond was not telling the truth? In a moment, we'll hear, but first... The solution to our mystery.
Mrs. Hammond stayed behind in New York, killed her husband, and supposedly returned from South America to tell me about her strange presentiment. She said she was driving on the right side of the road. So I knew she couldn't have been to Uruguay, or she'd have known that Uruguay is the only country in the Western Hemisphere where driving on the left still prevails.